So Mark Carney has fled the World Economic Forum as it started to implode, has fled the global financial lines for net zero as it has folded, and he's managed to burrow his way into Canada, which is very embarrassing for our country that we let that happen. But all the things that he ever talked about at the World Economic Forum, he's doing. He's managing the economy. He is the manager. He is centrally planning our economy, as if he has some secret knowledge that only he has about how Canada works, even though he's been away for 20 years. Spoiler alert, no person has that much knowledge. There is no person, even the smartest person in the world, that knows how to run the economy. There was a beautiful essay about this by Frederick Bastiat, who was an economist and philosopher, who wrote this in 1850. So really early days of, or mid-industrial revolution. I mean, industrial revolution was quite progressed, but it was before the age of cars or airplanes. Bastiat in 1850 wrote about the enormous city of Paris. And he thought, how is it possible that every restaurant, every shop, every bakery, every home has just the right amount of bread with no one in control? There was no boss of it. There was no ministry of bread. And he thought, in fact, if there were a ministry of bread, there would be starvation and chaos. And he talked about spontaneous order of 1 million different people in Paris versus sort of organized chaos, because so much of the capitalist system is little pieces of information that countless people have. Local conditions, supply, demand, price, whatever. Every bakery knowing, well, I sold this many last night, I'll sell this many this week. It's a Friday or it's a holiday, I'll sell this many. Every restaurateur thinking, oh, this is exactly how much I sold. Yeah, like there is countless little pieces of information about local conditions, price, whatever. No one person could ever be smart enough to make sure every single home and every single restaurant in Paris had the right amount of bread. But the government, if they were to do it, it would be a failure. Now, Joseph Stalin and Mao Zedong both tried. I'll get back to that in a minute. I mean, that's what's going on here. Mark Carney made an announcement the other day like he is some high priest of industry about which corporate projects may proceed and which may not. And he's not giving any explanations. He's not issuing an opinion. It's just he's like an oracle. He's like a grand wizard. Take a look.
The Major Projects Office is helping to build Canada smarter and quicker, fast-tracking infrastructure that we need to unlock our country's immense resources and potential. And in this way, we'll build our communities, grow new businesses, and create tens of thousands of new careers in sustainable industries. Back in September, in Edmonton, we referred projects that represent more than $60 billion in investment. And today, we're going to announce some projects that will double that impact. The budget that I referenced a moment ago, the budget of last week, reinforces our mission to build Canada strong. It's our plan so that Canadians take full control of our future. It's a plan to move from over-reliance on one trading partner, the United States, to resilience to global shocks. It's a plan to replace uncertainty with prosperity.
By the way, all of these projects that he's talking about, they have been proposed for years. Many of them have been languishing for nearly a decade under Trudeau's red tape. It's the Liberals who were almost at the point of killing these deals, and now Carney said, oh yeah, okay, you can go now. Each of these companies by now, by the way, is ready to put their own money into making something. I don't know, a mine, a project of some sort. Their own money, typically, which means they've spent years thinking about it and planning it and investigating it and studying it and typically not asking the taxpayer for help. So why wouldn't all of those projects be allowed to proceed? Why does it need an additional layer of political approval? Why does it have to meet Mark Carney's taste? Why do we need to appeal to the whims of the leader? That's North Korea stuff. That would be like 10 different restaurants all saying, well, we think a lot of people want to go out for out to eat. We're going to open restaurants, and I'm going to open a Chinese restaurant, I'm going to an Italian restaurant, and the chefs are ready to cook, and investors are ready to rent the place and hire staff. But some local boss says, no, I'm going to choose which ones open and which ones can't. What? They're all ready to do it. They're not asking for your money. They're all obeying the law. It's really none of your business. You can eat at whichever restaurant you like. Who are you to say which ones can or can't work? Why not let the people? Why not let the market? On what basis? Is it based on who lobbies Mark Carney? Who is cool and uses the right buzzwords? Is it based on who donated to his campaign? Is it who talks about global warming still? I mean, his own close friends at GFANZ, Global Financial Alliance for Net Zero, they've abandoned his schemes, but he's just foisting it on us. I mean, just a few weeks ago, he let the mask slip, I think. It was so childish, so gross. He was asked about oil pipelines, which are more valuable than all the other projects put together, by the way. Not only are the construction costs of pipelines enormous, and again, this would all be paid for by private companies. Northern Gateway, Keystone XL, these are private companies that said, we will put the money in, you don't have to put the money in. By the way, not only is the construction multi-billion dollars, but the oil that flows through them is Canada's most valuable export. I don't know if you know that, but oil and gas exports to America are triple what the auto industry is. So for example, a pipeline like the Keystone XL pipeline, which is partially built but not built, it would have 800,000 barrels of oil a day. Now, the world price of oil is about 60 US dollars per barrel, or about 85 Canadian. And by the way, Canadian oil is actually sold at a discount to world prices because of a lack of pipelines. So in a single year, if Keystone XL were built, that would move $25 billion worth of oil, just that one pipeline, every year for a century. But here's what Mark Carney said a few weeks ago when asked about oil pipelines.
Is this pipeline going to come?
It's so boring.
It's not actually.
It is. No, but it is. It is
country.
because it's. Look, it's. Don't worry, we're on it. We're on it. Like we're on it.
And
but
who's
there is
showing
this
up to
whole
that
world.
party?
Okay, hands up. Who's working on the pipeline in this room? Okay.
Isn't
Right.
that a problem?
No. Look at all the variety. Like, Nav, does your, like, we have.
Yeah, if there's more prosperity, they'll get more cell phone services.
But look, okay, so what's going to drive, one of the things with, yeah, don't worry, we're on the pipeline stuff. Danielle's on line one, don't worry, it's going to happen. But, well, something's going to happen, let's put it that way. It's not very good negotiating by my perspective. But what some in the room will unlock on the data center side, the intelligence infrastructure side, will have a much bigger impact on productivity in this country. Will have a much bigger impact on our standard of living. And advantaging that, which is what we're doing with the productivity super deduction. Like, it's an easy conversation to have about a pipeline because it's one thing we can see. But the reality is that there's much, much more to the Canadian economy, and there's much, much more to the future of the Canadian economy. And so we're attacking it on all sides.
So boring. What are you, like a teenage child? You want to play video games? Sorry to bore you. Sorry we all can't be as riveting and scintillating and dynamic and so damn interesting as you are, Mark Carney. You're so magnetic. As if boring or not boring is anything other than his own snobbery. Sorry, the boring jobs are what builds this world. And in Canada, that's oil and gas, which is more than double oil auto exports. And Carney seems resigned to losing our auto industry. Hey, why don't you actually build something that the world wants and Trump can't move? Trump can't move the oil patch to America. He can move the car companies there. It looks like he's doing it. Trump will have to buy our oil from us. He can't say, I demand that the oil sands move. Sorry to bore you with the oil industry. Sorry, I can't, what a childish reaction. So Carney announced his favorite companies and no oil companies were amongst them.
Now, Canada, let me start with our position as an energy superpower. We're starting to realize our full potential in both conventional, i.e. oil and gas, and clean energies. LNG is an essential fuel for the energy transition. LNG can help Canada build new trading relationships, especially in fast-growing markets in Asia. By 2040, it's estimated the global LNG demand will rise by 60%, and Canada will be ready. We're home to the world's fourth largest reserves of natural gas, and we have the potential to supply up to 100 million tons annually of new LNG exports to Asia. But that will require major investment across a wide range of infrastructure. And to encourage that investment, the budget provides new tax incentives to encourage the world's lowest carbon, I'll repeat, the world's lowest carbon LNG facilities. And the budget also expands the Canadian Infrastructure Bank's ability to support projects like Xylism's LNG. Xylism comprises a new gas pipeline, a new electricity transmission line, and a new floating LNG export facility. Led by the Nisga'a Nation under President Ava Clayton, Xylism's will become Canada's second largest LNG facility with a capacity to export 12 million tons of LNG every year to new markets. It'll also be one of the world's cleanest LNG operations, with emissions an incredible 94% below the global average, and with the potential to reach net zero by the end of this decade. All while creating thousands of skilled careers and $4 billion contributions annually to our GDP. The federal government has been working closely with the province of British Columbia in the development of this project, most notably through a one project, one review environmental assessment process and associated consultations led by the province. In addition to consulting on the financing of Xylism, the Major Project Office will also help coordinate timely approvals of all three elements of the project and the related transmission infrastructure that I'll discuss in a moment. Now, more broadly, taking a step back from LNG, core to becoming an energy superpower will be to fully capitalize on Canada's advantage in clean energy by substantially expanding our clean electricity grid. Over 80% of the electric power we produce in the country, it's higher obviously in British Columbia, but in the country as a whole, is clean. The point is, clean electrification is the path. It's the only path to building a sustainable, prosperous economy.
Now, a liquefied natural gas plant was approved, but it still doesn't have a pipeline to supply it, so I'm not sure what's going to happen there. But there's a left-wing activist in British Columbia named Kai Nagata who asked a question that I thought was sort of interesting. Here's Kai Nagata talking to Mark Carney.
Yeah. Kai Nagata from Dogwood News, following up on this question. So, as it stands, Western LNG is the owner of the Xylism's terminal, and it would be built in Korea with Korean and Chinese steel. So how much taxpayer money are we prepared to invest in a project that is American-owned and foreign-built?
There are different aspects of the project, as I said. There is the PRGT pipeline, which is necessary, which is Canadian-owned First Nation. Sorry, can I finish? There is the associated transmission line that comes there. There are structures that come with projects that ensure that there is returns to taxpayers through the tax system as well. And the structure of the financing is a decision that we take with the full information of the project design. So that's part of, we answer that question with full information by doing the work, and that's what the referral to the Major Project Office facilitates. Korea,
China, that's sort of interesting. I know that Mark Carney has been saying, well, we're going to emphasize Canadian first and Canadian steel and stuff. And it doesn't sound that way. I wonder if Brookfield Asset Management is getting anything out of this. But I don't really care about China, Korea stuff. If it's not my money investing in the thing, I just want the things built because I know for one thing the gas is Canadian. The gas will be produced in Canada. I just want the thing built and for the government to step out of the way, not to pretend he's some miraculous oracle who can see into the future. I mean, Justin Trudeau foolishly said there's no business case to sell oil and gas to the world. And then Qatar goes and signs a multi-billion-dollar deal with Europe. I mean, it's like when Justin Trudeau and Doug Ford spent tens of billions of dollars on electric car batteries. That's the future. And those companies are now leaving us. I saw a tweet by CP24, which is owned by CTV. The regime media is trying to spin this as oil and gas industry approves. Yeah, I read the story. No actual oil producers were actually quoted in it. Now, some lobbyist from the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers was quoted, and he's obviously trying hard to maintain his relationship with the Carney Liberals rather than promoting the interests of his own industry. But no oil producer praised this because no oil production will be allowed. No pipeline, no tankers. You know, Mao Zedong, I mentioned this earlier, Stalin and Mao, they tried to centrally command the economy in a manner similar to what Mark Carney is doing. Mao was crazy. One of the things he did during, various eras of uprisings and revolutions and internal revolutions is he mandated that farmers, instead of farming for food in the world's hungriest country, that they start to make steel in their backyard. Do you think it's possible to make steel in your backyard? Well, Mao did, and it caused a famine. It was an economic disaster. And then Mao came, I thought, one of the problems why there's so few crops is because there are sparrows eating our food. So he called upon the Chinese people to kill every sparrow they saw. And they did. And tens of millions of sparrows were killed. So it's true the sparrows didn't eat the crops anymore, but now locusts had no natural predators left, did they? And so nature was out of balance and the locusts completely wiped out the crops. This is what Frederick Bastiat was warning about a bread ministry that's so smart but knows nothing. He's warning about the experts. Frederick Bastiat's conversation about spontaneous order versus planned chaos, centrally planned chaos, is actually a shot at experts who know nothings, who read a book about, I've read a book about baking, and I think it should be done this. I've read a book about how to make steel in our backyard, and that's how, I've read a book about how to choose industries. You're not an expert. Remember Mark Carney? He was not the CEO of Brookfield. He wasn't the hands-on president. He was the chairman who was busy with other projects at the United Nations, the World Economic Forum. He didn't get into the details of the companies they bought. He was sort of the big relationships guy, the big speeches guy, the conference goer. He was not the CEO. He chaired their board meetings. But even Brookfield itself isn't a company that builds things. They buy assets and manage them or flip them or chop them up and resell them. They don't actually run businesses. They're an asset manager. It's called Brookfield Asset Management. They're not operators of companies. Mark Carney is not an entrepreneur. He's not a builder. He's never run a company. Not at Brookfield, not at the World Economic Forum, not at the United Nations, not at the central banks, and not at Goldman Sachs. His whole life, he's been a Marxist expert who's obsessed with control and authority. He's the kind of person who would say, yeah, we should have a ministry of bread. Or yeah, we should kill every sparrow. That'll save the crops. You know, he's going to plunge us into recession, although I think we're already there. And you know, despite his grudging approval of a handful of projects, the very idea that you have to impress dear leader before you're allowed to spend your own money investing in Canada, that's going to scare away $1 trillion from Canada into Donald Trump's America. Just you wait and see.